In episode 31, I'm joined by GM Brady Salisbury and manager Goose Gozzo. The season's about to get underway, so meet the Pepper Pickers. Our guests today are the general manager and manager of the Gastonia Ghost Peppers. They're responsible for Gastonia owning the best winning percentage in a 3-year span in Atlantic League history. I know two guys, and their names are Brady Salisbury and Mauro Goose Gozzo. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
Doing good. Thanks for having us.
Doing great. Thank you, Noah.
Thanks for coming on. So, Gastonia Ghost Peppers, has the name sunk in yet?
Yeah, not quite yet. I mean, I think as we walk around the stadium and we see all the stuff, all the stickers and all the signage and stuff, I think it will. Once we put the uniform on, I think it'll be even more. It hasn't quite hit yet, but once we get started, I'm sure it will.
How about you, Brady?
Yeah, I'm just happy to finally have like one set brand, one identity that we can kind of get behind and really just kind of play for that.
How was the off-season? Long off-season, right?
Yeah, just kind of rest and relaxation, actually, for me, a little bit. Did a couple trips up to Vermont. Obviously, got to bond with my dog again and went on a lot of hikes and a lot of walking and stuff. So just kind of enjoyed it. It was kind of chill.
Yeah, I always view the off-season as kind of two parts. October through December, you get to kind of hang out, take some trips, see some family, and then as soon as January hits, you're like, all right, we're gearing back up for baseball season. So now here we are.
When you're gearing back up for baseball season, do you talk with Goose more often? I know you guys talked about how you talk to each other more than your significant others during the baseball season. So does that start to ramp back up in January?
I think before January, actually. I think this year we've taken a month off, but there were still a couple calls a week. And then as we get closer to when Brady comes up with a list of players that we're going after, then it starts becoming 2-a-days, 3-a-days, 4-a-days, and then whatever we need. I mean, again, we deal with guys in the West Coast, and we deal with guys in the East Coast, and sometimes different countries, agents from all around the world and stuff. So it could be any hour of the night that we have to talk to each other.
Yeah, honestly, I think this offseason was probably the least we've had to talk to each other, mainly because it was also the most normal offseason I think we've ever had, in terms of there wasn't an ownership change, and, we kind of knew what to expect going into this year. So, you kind of nailed it on the head. We usually give each other October to kind of not talk to each other for a month, and then, kind of November 1st, we dive back in, and, everything's just kind of leading to now.
Opening day less than 2 weeks away. You guys feel prepared? You feel ready yet?
Yeah, I'm sure there's going to be some, last minute things that occur, whether, knock on wood, whether it's injury or, a guy's not quite ready to go like we think he should be or whatever. But other than that, we like the group of guys that we have here, and we're going to be able to evaluate and pick the team from.
Yeah, I think on paper, we stare at a whiteboard for what feels like 5-6 months now and just looking at names. So what's really fun about this weekend as guys start to arrive is now, names on a board turn into actual people. And so it's really cool to start seeing those relationships form, not just with us, but also with each other. I mean, when you're building a team, you're not just building the roster, you're also building the clubhouse. And so one of the things I know we've talked about a lot is it's cool kind of seeing like which guys click with each other, which guys really get along, the energy guys. It's just really a fun dynamic.
The quality of the guys that we have had here before that are returning are going to be the natural leaders of the clubhouse, and some of the players that we have coming into camp kind of fit right into that same mold. And with the leadership that we have, we believe that we'll have a good clubhouse and shouldn't have any problems, knock on wood.
One change to the coaching staff, and that's Tony Fossas being brought on as pitching coach. How do you guys make the decision that there needed to be a pitching coach in 2025?
Well, I mean, for the last 2 years, we had Ian as a player pitching coach, and good for Ian that, halfway through the year he was able to get to a bigger place and make more money, and now his family's growing and everything. So it was great for him to be able to go and make more money someplace else and support his family. And like I said, he just started a family and stuff. So that was great for him. But it does put stress on the team. It does put stress on our bullpen guys that are willing to assist me in the dugout. So one of the conversations that we had towards the latter of last year, Brady and I, were if we could find somebody that can be a staple for us as a pitching coach, could take some of that away from me, and also kind of be involved in our daily stuff with our projections for that particular game or whatever. I think it's a great thing, and I love that Tony is the choice that we made.
As long as Tony doesn't get signed by Taiwan or Korea in the middle of the season, right? It'll be fine.
Yeah, I saw Tony, throwing a little bit the other day, so there's a chance the KBO could come swoop him up. But the other aspect too, Goose nailed that on the head, is that Tony's actually helping a lot in the recruiting, aspect as well. Being in the game as long as he has, and obviously the pipeline he has with the Reds. I mean, it's really helped us a lot gain, more traction with some bigger name guys that we may not have even had a chance with before. So he's already showing his worth straight away.
I know something he talked about on the podcast is Sal Romano, the relationship and camaraderie he had with him. So I know that was certainly a big reason as well. Speaking of camaraderie, phenomenal camaraderie between you two and Chuck for the 3 years you guys have all been together. So how do you make sure whoever you choose to come in as the new member of the coaching staff fits like a glove, essentially?
Well, I mean, I think when you have the experience of a Tony Fossas and has done it as a player, has done it as a coach, and has done it as a field coordinator, a pitching coordinator, I think that experience alone, I think he's seen every kind of personality imaginable out there, from players, from coaches, from the staff, from front office people. So I think Tony's just going to adapt right into it. I think he's going to understand what his role is going to be, and he may take on a little bit more or just let us do our thing. I think he's going to read the room and he's going to figure it out, and I think he's a great pick.
Yeah, I think Goose nailed that perfectly. It helped. We already kind of knew Tony the past couple of years. He lives right down the road in Clover. So he's, been to some games. He's been in our clubhouse. So he's already kind of seen how we run things a little bit. So when he did say he was interested in actually becoming a pitching coach for us, it was really a no-brainer because we already kind of had tested it out in the past.
35 players are reporting to spring training this week. How have you worked over the years to evaluate players and determine who's going to make the team?
Well, each year it seems like we have more and more returners and guys that want to return and guys that are willing to, commit to us but still have the whole off season in order to be able to get picked up by a bigger, better situation for them. So in doing that, like I said, I think the pieces that we add are what's in need for us, what we need out there, and then also the style of play that we want to be. What's our personality going to be? Our personality one year was power, another year was speed, another year was a combination of both, and I think this year we have a great combination of the leadership type guys. We do have a lot of speed. We have a lot of athleticism. I think this year's motto is going to be athleticism, but I'll let Brady tell you what he thinks.
Well, kind of what he alluded to a little bit with having so many returners, it's a double-edged sword. Obviously it's a good thing because you have guys coming back that they know how we operate and what also to expect out of them. However, at the same time, what you're missing. And so when we're bringing new guys in, and, it makes for a very competitive spring training. Having 35 guys at camp, that means here in about, a couple weeks, we're going to have a really, a few tough decisions on who's actually going to be making our opening day roster. So as good as it is to have returners, it does make the situation a little bit harder.
This is actually the most players that we've had in camp as a Gastonia team in the Atlantic League. This is the most we've had. So in saying that, like Brady mentioned, we've got some tough decisions to make, and we've got some tough decisions to make. I mean, guys that normally would automatically make the team. There might be guys that don't make the team. I mean, it's just going to be tough on us, and we really have to be aware in these next 10 days of what's going to be best for the organization.
Goose, you were talking about your plans. They've really come to fruition. In 22, you wanted to run a lot. Most stolen bases in a single season in league history. 23, you wanted to hit for power, 220 home runs, most in league history. 24, you wanted to focus on both. You said athleticism is huge. I know, Brady, you also mentioned the bullpen being a very key piece for this 2025 season.
Yeah, I think specifically talking about the bullpen, we've taken some different strategies at it the last few years. This year, I think we're going for more of the depth perspective as well as having more hybrids than we usually do. Last year, I think our biggest struggle during the season is when we lost some of our starting pitching to Mexico roughly all about the same time. We had to have guys come up out of the bullpen to replace those guys because internally that's the easiest way, to fill those positions, and that's where we obviously struggled. It was hard to get 5 innings out of a starter, especially 5 quality innings out of a starter. So this year, we already have at least 2 or 3 guys that we know as soon as a starter does get picked up, we've got 2 or 3 guys that can step in and hopefully not miss a beat.
Well, pitching is definitely always probably one of the most important things. If you're not pitching, you're not giving your team the honest chance, and we saw that in 21. Where we had a great offensive team, top three in the league. However, our pitching, we weren't able to get the pitching going like we needed to for whatever reason. As far as the type of play that we're going to have, I like to create runs. The long ball is great, and I love it. And in this park, you're going to see a lot of it naturally, just from the type of stadium that it is. But I like to be able to create runs. It's not all the time where you're going to get 3 hits in an inning in order to score a run. However, you get a guy that has a good walk percentage, a guy that doesn't strike out very much, puts pressure on the defense. Now he's on first base with the speed that we have and 7 of our 9 potential starters. We could be on third base in 2 pitches if the pitcher neglects the runner on first. So I like to put pressure on the defense, make their defensive work. That's a very important part of the game as well. And I think defensively, with our athleticism, we're going to be able to cover the field.
You've worked together for 3 years, going into year 4 together. What have you learned from each other?
I'll let you go first.
Well, I think it's getting to the point where we finish each other's thoughts and sentences.
I thought he was going to finish that for you.
Very good. But we do. It's like we'll look at a player and I'll make a signal to him. I think we were at a camp in High Point, and, I'll look over to Brady, and Brady will just start shaking his head because he knows I like that guy, and Brady already liked that guy. Yesterday we're evaluating our local tryout, and, I just said the name Brady, and he knew exactly, no one else knew, but Brady knew exactly what I was talking about. There's our best athlete on the field. So I think we see things the same way, and then all that talking that we have done over the years, whether it's 2 times a day, 3 times a day, or whatever it ends up being, I think we get to know each other's personalities. We get to know each other's feelings before and after each game. It'll be before and after each practice as well. Obviously with Tony and Chuck in there too, I think it's just a great staff to be part of and to, try to bring something home to Gastonia.
We've talked about it before on this podcast. I think dating back to the first time we ever even had contact with each other, we talked about that balance straight out of the gate. We're both kind of coming from different backgrounds, obviously different ages, and it was kind of like, how can we work together to give ourselves the best opportunity to win ball games? And, that started from, let's take the old school, let's take, the gut feelings, the eye test. Let's take what he's seen from the numerous, baseball games he's seen over his career, and let's take that with my side coming from more of an analytical approach. And you see it in almost every decision we make, we are going to factor both sides of that into every decision. And obviously, after the last 3 years together, I would say outside of a championship, it's worked out pretty well. So, our goal is not to be complacent either. We're always still trying to learn more. It does help the fact that we are on the same page with everything. But, neither one of us know everything there is about baseball. And so that's why it's one of those things where maybe, we hear something from somebody else or we read an article, we're always sharing ideas with each other. So, because who knows, maybe there is that one thing that's the difference. That's the thing that ends up winning us a championship.
Haven't won the championship yet, but you've won over 65% of your games, 65.1 to be exact, in this 3-year span. Never been done before in a 3-year span in league history. How much pride do you both have in the amount of success you've had?
Oh, it definitely feels good. It's easier to go home. It's easier to sleep and all that stuff. But the bottom line is you have to get the 26 guys all on the same page to understand there is an expectation. We go out there, we play 9 innings, and we play to win every game. This is not development. This is not about developing a guy. However, we have seen some guys develop and become better players by the halfway point or whatever. A lot of that could be from the type of players that they're around or the type of baseball that we play or the freedom that we give the guys. I'm a big believer in having a player play relaxed. I think what we do a really good job with here with our coaching staff is we show love to the players. We show love. We show players that we care about them. We appreciate them making this choice. They could have made many choices when they became a free agent, but to make this choice. So we want them to be comfortable. We want them to be loose. We want their full abilities to come out just by being relaxed. And I think that's what we do a really, really good job of, and I think I'm very proud of that.
As much as I think we both love that winning percentage number, I think what really stands out to me even more going into that is you think about how many guys we've had get picked up during that span. I mean, you notice there are some teams in independent baseball that may have, pretty good, seasons overall, pretty good records, but they've essentially have the same roster the entire year. They may have one or two guys get picked up. I mean, on average, like we've had 7, 8, 9, 10 guys every single year get picked up that those are impact players. Those are not, 26 man on the roster guys that, you can just call up and find somebody else to step in. These are guys that are your 3-hole hitters or your ace or, that stop guy in the bullpen. So it's pretty incredible, and it's a testament to, Goose and the rest of the coaching staff. Like you said, having guys play comfortable here, but also getting guys to step up when we do have those, there's been times where we're down to a 24-man roster, and we have guys that haven't played in a week come in, and they end up winning us that game. So I give so much credit to Goose and the rest of the guys for that, because that's what it boils down to.
Like he was saying, we lose a 3-hole hitter, or we lose a 5-hole hitter. I can remember like losing Mazika last year, losing Ascara and stuff before a couple years back. The player that we get, the player that we end up getting to replace them or whatever, Brady does an outstanding job with that, which helps. But they all seem to understand their role within a few days here, and so they just fall right into the system. They just fall into the system. I mean, this is what I'm expecting for you. I mean, one that comes to mind last year is when we got Mark Flores. Mark Flores comes right into town in Lexington, and I think within the first 2 days, I think he had 2 home runs. Definitely in that series, he had 2 home runs. And Mark, as we know, Mark hit from the 3-hole to the 6-hole, during the year. So that's a tough thing to come in, whether it's halfway through the year or whenever. Okay, you're going to be my donkey now. You're going to be the guy that's got to drive these runners in. All these fast guys before you, you're got to be the guy that's got to drive the runs in. And he. That's just an example of one of the players, but he is one of the players that came in here, felt right at home, loved it, do anything for the team to win the game.
On the note of players getting picked up, this weekend, the San Francisco Giants are playing the New York Yankees in a 3-game set. Very significant for Gastonia. Spencer Bivens, who pitched a scoreless inning yesterday for the Giants, and J.C. Ascar, of course, with the Yankees. Just how cool is that? How cool is it to know that 2 former players who played here on this park at Caramount Health Park are now on big league teams?
I think the best part about it is how similar but different their stories were. You see Bivens, and it's incredible the journey that it took for him, all the different stops he had in independent baseball to ultimately, Goose traded for him in 21, I believe it was. Then 22, we converted him to a reliever, and within a week, now he's in the Giants, affiliates, and now, of course, he made his MLB debut last year, so it was incredible. And then Ascara, a guy who, a little bit different route, started off with the Orioles, however, wasn't catching, then got kicked back to independent baseball. We use him in a variety of different ways, and now here he is with the Yankees, as their backup catcher. So they're both guys that are so deserving, but, what's the sad part of it is that there's so many more guys like them that haven't got that same opportunity. And we've seen guys come through here. I mean, the list is so long of guys that, whether they played here for a year or played here for multiple years, there's so many guys that do belong in AAA, do, deserve that shot in the big league. So I'm happy for those guys, but that list could be even longer.
We do what we say we're going to do for the players, and I don't know if other organizations, do that, but we're proud of everybody that has worn our uniform that we represent. We tell them that we're going to work for them. We tell them that we're going to help them. We're going to give them the opportunity, and that trust develops. And when when they're coming into our office and saying, hey guys, when do you think the next guy is getting picked up? And they look at our board, and we have a little board, and they have a board in my room of the players that have been picked up or whatever. They look right at that spot every time. We recruit players like that, saying that we have a very good record of guys getting picked up. And then we also make calls. We also make calls to whether it's Taiwan or Korea or Japan or an affiliated connection that we have. We tried to get Gatewood out of here last year, as good of a year as he had. We really pushed for Gatewood, Jake Gatewood, to get picked up because he was deserving. A lot of guys were deserving, but we understand that in order for them to develop that trust with us, we have to do what we say we're going to do, and we do it. I tell Brady all the time, Brady, at the end of the night, I want to go home. When I go brush my teeth before I go to bed, I want to know that I could sleep because I did the best that I could for the team, the player, and anybody that's involved to make this happen.
Brady, you were going through the path for Bivens, the path for Ascar. Do you think that's what makes independent ball so special, because you get stories like these?
It's definitely what makes it worth it. I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's no surprise that 99% of the guys in our clubhouse would much rather be in some affiliated, clubhouse. So when you get guys that come in, guys like Ascar and Bivens specifically, like, they bring the positive attitudes, it makes it so much easier to be like, okay, like, this is where we're at, like, let's make the most of it. That's one of the reasons why we go through such a, vigorous process of seeing, like, who are we going to welcome into our clubhouse? Because the minute you have one or two bad apples, it really does take away from what you're trying to build. I mean, it's one of the things he says a lot is, birds of a feather flock together, and it's the truth. It's one of the reasons why we take as much time as we do. Our goal before we sign anybody in the off season is we want to hear from at least one other person that's a quality guy, that's a good dude that we know when he comes in here, he's not going to rock the boat. And that's how we go about that process.
Yeah, and name doesn't mean anything. Just because a guy has MLB after his name, or just because a guy has AAA after his name. I mean, Brady does a great job of finding some needles in a haystack. Like the Kevin Watson, an A-ball player that ends up being a big time player for us last year. I mean, again, anywhere from the 1 hole to the 5 hole. I mean, Waddy had a great year. I mean, the type of guy that he is, he listened to a lot of the veterans around here. He understood our system. He plays like our system, and he's an A-ball guy. So big name, MLB team or whatever, it really doesn't matter. However, that's what we want to get him back to, whether it's an A-ball guy or whether it's a AAA guy or it's a guy that, maybe had an off year and he aged out. But that's basically what we want to do.
You guys both came on the podcast individually when it was called I Know a Guy. Now the podcast is called Pep Talk, so we're going to have a Pep Talk segment. What is the best piece of advice each of you have gotten?
I'm going to say my high school baseball coach. My high school baseball coach, as I was being recruited and all that, and one thing he told me is, Goose, he goes, you might go in as a pitcher. I got drafted as a shortstop pitcher, but he goes, you might go in as a pitcher. If you go in as a pitcher, watch every play regardless. Watch how the best players do it. You're going to learn the game more from watching the best do it and then also listening to the best teaching you and teaching the team. And I try not to miss a pitch. Like if I have to use the bathroom during an inning or whatever, I try to wait till the half inning is over, and I'll try to run out, peek out, and don't miss a pitch. I don't want to miss a pitch because the story is out there for you every single day. The history of baseball is out for you there every single day. Something different could happen at a baseball field every day. That's the best advice I got from my high school baseball coach, Paul Beretta.
Similarly, I would say one of the pieces of advice my high school coach, Chris Varney, gave me was listen more than you speak. And I think that's one of the things I've tried to take really all through my career in baseball so far, especially coming as a guy who I didn't play college baseball, I didn't play affiliated baseball. I knew I was going to have to earn every bit of respect I was going to, receive in this game. And one of the ways you do that is when you're in a room, especially, for example, when, I'm in the managers meetings last week, all these different managers around the league, all the experience they have, they've seen and they've done so much more than I ever have. So, like, if I can just sit there and listen to what they have to say, listen to their experiences, learn from that, see how they view something on the baseball field, that's amazing for me to have that access. So one of my things I try to do, and again, starting with Goose straight away, is I never try to be like, this is what I know, learn it or leave it. Like my goal is, what can I learn from Goose that he learned back in the 80s? What can I learn from Goose that he learned in his first year of independent baseball? And I think you can apply it to other things than just baseball too. I think it's really just a good piece of advice for life in general, to be honest.
I think that 2 great pieces of advice right there. You were talking about the coaches' meetings that you just brought up. That was Tuesday and Wednesday at the Atlantic League Pro Days. How was that experience for you guys at High Point?
It was good. It was good to be around all the guys. I mean, we did it, a couple 3 years back for about a 3-year run, to where we were able to see each other and stuff. And again, it's in a more relaxed environment than playing against them and trying to win the series. So you do see guys in a little bit of a relaxed mode, which is good. You get to see the true personalities. I mean, obviously you see them when they're fighting. You see them when they're nice and relaxed and all that. We're very fortunate in the Atlantic League that we do have a good crew of managers in this league and assistant coaches as well. So it's always good. That's always the best part of getting together and being able to, share the off-season experiences or see how the families are doing or whatever. It seems like all the managers have gotten along with each other and kind of know a little bit more about the personal lives of everybody and stuff. So it does really make it fun to be able to go to things like that.
That was my first time being in that setting. Goose, as he said, the Atlantic League used to have something like this, so this was my first time getting to see all of the managers in one spot. So, echoing what he said, you do get to see those personalities kind of mesh, which was incredible to see. But at the same time, too, the actual event itself, it was so cool to see 140 different players from literally all over the country, coming to have an opportunity to be on one of our 10 teams in this league. And ultimately, we did see some, pretty good talent. Honestly, I was pleasantly surprised. We ended up having the 10th pick in the draft, selected Jackson Boss, and that's a guy that, went to UNC Charlotte, lives locally for us, and it's a guy that we're excited to see how he matches up with the talent we have on our roster. We've got one of the more veteran lineups, in the league, and so for a guy like that who hasn't had pro experience, for him to get to come in and face, big league hitters, AAA hitters, guys that already have solid foundations, solid approaches, it's going to be really cool to see how he handles that pressure.
Also, a tryout yesterday here at the park. Do you guys communicate throughout? Do you guys step aside and talk to each other, or is it like you said earlier, you just say Brady and then you guys already are on the same page like that?
Well, I think there's certain things that Brady did a lot of the paper evaluation yesterday, and as I was hitting fungos and stuff like that, and one thing that I think people need to understand, when you're talking about Brady Salisbury here. He's an evaluator extraordinaire. I mean, he could look at numbers and see what kind of player that is, but as he's evaluating, he's learned a lot on how to evaluate a player, and we handed him yesterday at the end of that tryout, we handed him an evaluation. We gave them their numbers that they need to see, and then Brady can vouch for this too, is at the end of the workout yesterday, we've had 2 or 3 guys that came up to me personally and said, Goose, what do I need to do to get better and or be a player in this league and dominate? And, it gave me time to sit there and explain to them that, what the grading scale is and what level of play this is compared to maybe where they have played. So, and some of them have played in lesser leagues or whatever, but there's a certain skill set when you're talking about professional baseball that you have to be able to have. There's 5 tools that you evaluate. I explained that to them, and that might be knowledge that they've never received. So the fact that, I've been saying it for years, doing it for years or whatever, you can never take that for granted, because if you can help somebody, he may not be the Atlantic League All-Star that he wants to end up being, but he may end up being a good coach for somebody that day. I mean, later on in his career, or he may end up making a difference for another child. And passing on the game. And that's what I feel like as a manager of an independent professional team or whatever. It's my experiences I share with the players, and those players are just going to keep passing it on. It's a fraternity.
I think one of the best things about having a local tryout like that is, the odds are you're not going to find a guy who's going to come in and be a Cy Young guy for us. It's just that's the way it is. However, it is cool that a lot of these guys that come to our tryouts, these are the same guys that come to our games on Friday night, Saturday night, and they're watching thinking, oh, I wonder if I could do that. I wonder what it takes to be out on that field or be in that dugout. And so like you just said, after those tryouts, to be able to talk to these guys and, just kind of give them a little bit of insight, like what it really takes. There's some guys that we saw out there that did have a tool or two. Like it was probably one of the better local tryouts I think we've had in the last few years. But having tools and then having consistency, I think, is the biggest difference between what the average person, watching our game thinks, oh, like I could, hit that 90-mile-an-hour fastball. So, okay, could you hit that 90-mile-per-hour fastball consistently? And that's what the game of baseball is all about. It's whoever can do, hit 300 for that longest period of time, that's the guy that's, getting paid the big bucks. So, anybody, it's the blind squirrel can find a nut every now and then. So that's – you see both sides of it, and I think you see a lot of guys, like they actually see, okay, like this is what I'm missing, or this is, what I need to do to be better.
The higher levels of baseball that you get to, the game does get faster. So if you're a fan here and you have season ticket, you're a season ticket holder here, you're seeing a pretty fast thinking game. It might look slow because there hasn't been a hit for 2 or 3 innings, but when that ball's hit, every player on that field has to know where they're going with the ball. Not only do they have to field it fundamentally and the fastest way in order to turn a double play, but the game speeds up. The game is so fast. The fan ends up seeing the end results, whether it's the error or whether it's the double play or whether it's the nice play. But that break that outfielder makes or the footwork that infielder used, you could start in rookie ball. And I mentioned something to Brady yesterday, a couple days back at the tryout. I'm like, this level of play is much slower than the level of play that we play, and then just take and you could tell that by like looking at the roster and seeing what the highest level is of a player. You take a guy that's been in AAA for 2 or 3 years, he is going to be quicker thinking on the field. He is going to be more prepared to know what to do. He's had more experience of the tough play to his left, to his right, to his back, to his front. So the game does get faster. And in the Atlantic League here in Gastonia, we play a fast game. The fan might not think it's fast because it lasts for 2 hours and whatever, but when the ball is hit, the reaction times are faster than, say, what you would see in rookie ball.
Another thing I'd like to point out, too, piggybacking off that is, there's a lot of fans that come and watch our games and think, oh, like it would be so easy. Like I would have gone with this pitcher in that situation, or I would have pinched it here or hit and run there. People don't realize how quick the game is and how hard it is to actually manage a ball game. Like I've been very fortunate to be in the dugout for, a couple of different, capacities, but just to appreciate like what Goose is able to do on a day-to-day basis, with the decision-making of, like this is plan A and this is how so-and-so is going to come out of the pen first. Now so-and-so didn't get the job done. Now there's bases loaded, 2 outs. We got to get somebody warmed up. And now you're thinking, okay, I had to use, Johnny Joe in the 6th inning, so now who's going to pitch the 7th inning? The game itself is so fast, again, especially at this level. It's a high level of, quality competition that I don't think managers get enough credit, for what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's so easy when you're sitting in the stands, there's no pressure on you to make those decisions. Be like, oh, well, hindsight's 2020, I would have gone with so-and-so. It's hard, when everybody's looking at you to make that decision in the dugout, and there's not like a, hey, timeout, let me think about what I want to do here. It's such a fast game, and I don't think people truly appreciate that.
Well, if you think managing's hard, let's see you handle this trivia because I have some fun trivia for you two. We don't have to do a whole buzz-in thing. I'm just going to ask the trivia questions, and then you're going to answer them however you can. So,
okay.
All-time Gastonia history stolen base leaders, the top 5 stolen base leaders, not for a single season, all time. So if you could just throw a name out there if you want.
I mean, Reinheimer's got to be.
Reinheimer, number 1, 104 stolen bases.
Skoll.
Jake Skoll, 56 stolen bases. He's number 4.
Jarrett.
Zach Jarrett, 3rd with 60. So you got 1, 3, and 4 so
Hampton's
far.
got to be number 2, like 75-ish.
2 with 75.
Yep.
Good job, Brady. And now only 5 is remaining. You guys are killing this so far.
It's got to be Dela.
Dela, 55. Okay, that was easy, I guess. I'll step it up next time.
That was a good one.
The team is a new mascot. There are a lot of thoughts out there. What are your positive thoughts, let's say, about Peppy the Pepper?
Well, I mean, I think anytime you have a mascot that's going to be walking around the stadium and give something for kids to look at and look up to and help entertain some of the people that are not, like, say, avid baseball fans, but they're coming for an experience, I think it's a great thing.
I think we're seeing every day, whether it's in person or on social media, people are warming up to Pepe, which I think is ultimately the goal. You know, you want people to either feel strongly about him, whether that's we love him or we hate him. You know, if you're lukewarm, you know, it is what it is. The Pepper's not really doing his job. So I think as an organization, we really want to lean into that and really we want people to have strong feelings. I mean, you look at our social media interaction the last few weeks, it's the highest we've probably ever had. And a lot of that is due to Pepe, you know. People thinking they're either going to be scared of him, but you know it's interesting when we have these events with Pepe and there's kids running around. Kids are coming up, taking pictures, hugging on him. It's funny enough, it's the parents that were a little bit more weary. So, you know, maybe we could all learn a little bit from the children here, and you know, just kind of give Pepe a chance.
Goose, what's the main goal for you this season, other than winning a championship?
Make the playoffs. Give ourselves a chance to win a championship. I mean, that's the goal every. That's the goal every year. Short-term goals are always to win the series. I try to keep it as simple as that because if you're winning series, obviously you're playing well over 500 baseball, and there's a good chance that you are going to make the playoffs. So it's to make the playoffs, no doubt, every year.
I've got 3 kind of baseline things I look for every year now since year 1. Making the playoffs, that's number 1. Number 2, you know, if we can win at least 70 games, that pretty much puts us in that conversation. And then 3, I like to have at least 7 guys picked up every year. I think that's kind of a cool opportunity where, you know, if we're showing we're getting guys picked up, we're showing it's a revolving door, it just makes the recruiting process so much easier. And it's why we're here at the end of the day. As much as it is fun to win ball games, it feels so much better getting that phone call that so-and-so is getting that, you know, next chance that they deserve.
Brady, I'm going to put you on the spot. You said you need 2 rings this year. Care to elaborate?
Yeah, well, I think the championship ring is obvious. The other ring, of course, you know, my girlfriend Sam, we've been together almost 4 years now, so she consistently tells me how light her hand feels. So I think this year 2 rings would make my life a little bit better for sure.
All right, well, good luck with that. Good luck the rest of the way. 2025 opening day, April 25th. So best of luck this season, gentlemen. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
That's good. Thanks for having us.
Noah.